Welcome back again to Renka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe that I'd like to share with you, and it's called baked fish, SÜLT HAL. This is a recipe that my mother would make after my father would go on a fishing trip, and he'd bring home different types of fish like trout and rainbow trout and different types of fish. So this works great if you have the catch of the day for fish, and you could clean the fish, and you could do this with boned fish, but this particular recipe that I'm going to share with you is 4 deboned fish fillets, and I've used bassa fish. So you can use any type of deboned fish that you'd like, or choice of fish for this recipe. So what you will need is half of orange bell pepper and half of a red bell pepper and 1 medium onion, and I use the sweet onions for this particular recipe. A 1/4 teaspoon of Vegeta or vegetable base, half a teaspoon of sweet Hungarian paprika, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, a 1/4 cup of butter, a half a teaspoon of butter, and 4 deboned fish fillets, and I use the bassa fish today, B-A-S-A, bassa fish. So what I did was I washed and cleaned and cut the bell peppers lengthwise, and then I cut them again in half. So I placed them in a small bowl, and I cut the onions into small pieces. And I'll just show you what the bell peppers. I use bell peppers because they've got really nice sweet flavor to them. You can use green peppers if you like, or yellow ones. I happen to have these at home, and I've cut them lengthwise, and then I cut them again in half. And then of course I used onions, so I've cut them into these smaller pieces like this, sort of chunky. You don't want to be chopping them too finely for this recipe. And then what I've done is I have generously greased butter on the bottom of this sort of Pyrex heat-resistant rectangular dish, and I put butter on the bottom of it to get it ready for the fish. And then that's where the half a teaspoon of butter is. If you check my recipe, that's what I've used for the bottom of this rectangular Pyrex dish, heat-resistant dish. So, and then I've washed some fillets, 4 pieces, and what I'm going to do now is I am going to season one side of the fillet fish, and I'm going to put it bottom side up, seasoned bottom side up on the bottom of the heat-resistant dish that I'm using today. So I'm going to take my sea salt, and I am going to season one side only. I'm going to use half the amount to season one side of the fish. Just lightly sprinkle it on one side, and then I'm going to take my other ingredient, which is ground black pepper, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use half the amount of the 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper on one side. I'll do the same for that. I'm going to save some for when I do the top seasoning for the top of the fish. So, and I've used Vegeta, MSG-free Vegeta. You can use other types of vegetable bases, seasonings. I'm going to save some for the top. And then I'm going to season that. And then I'm going to take my fish fillets, and I'm going to put them on the bottom of my heat resistant pan. So I'm going to, so this should be bottom down. The seasoned part should be bottom down, like that. We haven't seasoned this side yet. And then I'm going to take my butter, which I've got in the refrigerator. And what I've done with a quarter cup of butter is I've made small cubes of butter. And I'm going to take half the amount, and I'm just going to start putting that on the top of the fish before I start putting the vegetables on there, the peppers and the onions. I'm going to take half that amount, and I'm going to spread that evenly on top of the fish. And then I'm going to take my peppers, and I'm going to use all of these. Spread it evenly on the top of the fish, and then I'm going to take my onions, and I use sweet onions, and I'm going to spread those. This is a medium onion. I like to use a lot of onion, and it's great with if you've caught fish, you know, you clean them, and my mom would bake it in the oven. This one is deboned fish, but you always have to be careful with fish. Even if it's deboned, you have to be careful with it even then. And then I'm going to take my seasoning, my leftover seasoning, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on the top. My black pepper, my sea salt. There's different kinds of products out there for sea salt. And my Vegeta. I'm going to sprinkle that on top. And then I've got my paprika, my sweet paprika, and I've left that for last. But before we do that, I'm just going to put whatever leftover butter there is, and I'm just going to spread that on the top. And then I'm going to take my sweet paprika, and I'm just going to sprinkle it evenly on the top of this. This is a great recipe, and it's baked in the oven. So I've got my oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit before you actually put this recipe into the oven. To 375. And that's what that looks like before it goes into the oven. It takes about 30 minutes to do it. So what you would do is you would preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and you would bake the fish fillets for 10 minutes, and then you would lower the temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit and cook it for an additional 20 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll come back when this recipe is ready, and I'll show you what it looks like on a plate with some rice. Welcome back again to Rinka's Kitchen. I had in the oven some baked fish, and these are 4 deboned bassa fish fillets, and you can use any fish of your choice to make this great recipe. This was a recipe from my grandmother and mother, passed down to me. So it has the bell peppers, the orange and red bell peppers, the onions, and the seasoning, and some butter, black pepper, sea salt, and Vegeta, and sweet paprika on the top. And so what I'd like to do is show you what this great recipe looks like coming out of the oven. So as you can see, you have the fish fillet, and there's the peppers and onions baked in the oven with butter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some fish to a plate. And a little bit of the onions and paprika on the top to serve it. A little bit of the red pepper. And this is a delicious recipe. This is something that my mother would make after my dad would come home from his fishing trips. Would clean the fish and she'd put it in the oven and bake it. And same with my grandmother. And they would use sort of like a catfish, kind of like in Hungary. Sort of like catfish were caught in the River Danube, and so there's different types of fish that were caught there by my mom's brother, and sometimes the girls would go fishing too to catch some fish, and my grandmother would clean the fish and then make this great recipe, bake it in the oven. So what I'd like to do is show you what this great recipe looks like on a plate with some rice. And it goes great with, you could make actually a salad with it, the mixed pickle salad recipe that I have on the website, or the cucumber salad, or any kind of favorite salad that you like to serve with this, with the fish. So I hope that you enjoy serving this recipe to your family and friends. If you have any questions regarding this recipe, please feel free to contact me at irene@irinkaskitchen.com or irinkaskitchen.com. Until next time, bon appetit, jó étvágyat!